Hello, everyone, and welcome to week number 15, 16, I think, the
You have
final
one job.
Gauntlet episode of Facecheck. We're man down because anytime I come to Virginia, for whatever reason, Zyrene misses alarm clock, gets sick. He's sick right now, not feeling well. We wish him the best, and hopefully he'll be well. His insights will be missed, but thank God we have Loco and Dom, the authorities of League of Legends and anything competitive. Guys, we not only had news about EU, but an international known figure now coming to North America to make North America great again in PapaSmithy, now coming to join 100 Thieves. That's where we want to start this episode. That's the big news. PapaSmithy now stepping down from the LCK after multiple years of being the Korean expert and then possibly being one of the greatest world's analysts, and now stepping into the role over at 100 Thieves. How do you think this is going to affect 100 Thieves specifically and North American LCS in general?
Do you want to go first, Tom?
Yeah, you can go first on this one.
I think it's going to affect them a lot. I think 100 Thieves definitely needed a voice for League of Legends and a leader in the League of Legends, like a leadership figure. Probably was doing that job somewhat, but they're really undermanned in terms of League of Legends because they're investing so much money into it, but in terms of staff, I don't think they have that much people. I know they have Prolly, and then I know they have Jungle Juice, and then Kelsey on the academy side, and then like Sabrina as like a house manager. But in terms of like actual leadership and actual like direction figure, it was mostly from what I know, Jackson. He's their GM. He was like part of their founding team. He's not someone with like League of Legends expertise. So getting someone with League of Legends expertise to be a full-time GM for the team, I thought was an incredibly good move.
Yeah, I think it's smart. I think it's good having somebody that like has experience like within Korea, because I feel like that's one of the things that they have been like struggling with, is trying to figure out like what type of team is like works well, what type of imports are going to work well with the team. And I think having like somebody with that connection that like can potentially like build a team with two Korean imports that like make sense, I think that's going to be super, super valuable going forward. I'm sure that he has some insight into like up and coming Korean players that, you know, might not be super well known on the international stage, but could be like a perfect fit for 100 Thieves. I mean, there's all these players that pop up all the time that you've never like heard about before. Like for me, I'd never heard about Showmaker until this year. Like I had no clue who that guy is, and now he's just one of the best mids in the world. And if you can grab talent like that and just like, instead of having to use like Rio, you actually have a top tier like mechanical mid or like a young like mechanical prodigy, and you surround them with like veteran voices like Amazing, like Afro, etc. I feel he has a much higher chance to work than just having like a full team of veterans that doesn't have the mechanical ceiling to like really push for like a top spot.
Sure. And I think you're hitting on a pretty good point here about why PapaSmithy will be great as a GM. Scouting is a big part of it, and your network, your global network. I think that's one of the most important things that you have as a GM. But Loki, you're one of the few people here, and actually, I think both of you would make solid GMs. Loco, you were the de facto GM during your time over at Golden Guardians with us. What does it mean to be a general manager? A true general manager in the sense of the word.
All right, so let's talk about esports general managers and actual sport general managers and kind of the shift that's happening. So esports general managers call Ubers for players. They order Postmates for players, and they'll talk to Riot and they'll drive them to places and they'll help them with paperwork. Esports general managers are basically babysitters and like moms and like parents for the players because they have like next to zero life skills. So that role is being called more and more so house manager and actual general manager from sports. Daniel, you can touch on that, and I'll talk about how it actually plays into esports.
General managers are the architect of everything on the competitive side. So general manager, when you think of a general manager of a store, you think of someone that like gets bitched at by customers. But in sports, general managers run everything. Every single decision usually goes through them. And then at times it has to go up to a board or a president or a head of esports, head of operations. But the general manager is the one that drives every single thing. So at what time does lunch served? What type of players you're looking to sign? What kind of motto is going to be the motto that's pushed out? Everything is pushed upon the general manager to make those decisions. And as Loco said, there's been a major shift over the last, I'd say, 2 years since I think the franchising of the LCS, that teams are now getting general managers that have that type of ground up experience to make decisions on everything from jersey colors all the way to how much are we paying our top player and what is our overall budget for things. So that's usually what a normal general manager is.
Yep, and that's what's starting to be for esports more and more so. So usually the general manager duties were shared between the head coach and the owner, but with like most teams getting bigger and bigger and League of Legends just being like a slice of what owners can be responsible for, they felt the need to kind of clone themselves and duplicate themselves and get people that can do that job full time. So coaches are expected to help with that more so, but I think more teams are moving in the direction of getting actual general managers, like full-time positions of you're responsible for the league team's success, you're responsible for the vision of the league team, you're responsible for even the aesthetic of the league team, like work with the designers. Like they find that position incredibly valuable, and it's an incredibly powerful position. In theory, general managers should be above the head coach, and in theory, general managers should be picking out the coaching staff along with the players.
Oh yeah, it should be 100% over. Like it should be 100% above the head coach, because one of the huge jobs of a general manager, and in my opinion, the most important job of being a general manager, is making personnel decisions and like knowing like who you're going to actually have on your team, who you're going to have as your coach, etc. So like if things are not working out, it's normally the general manager's decision to like remove and add players. Whereas before, it was kind of like the owner would just do whatever they feel. And I know there's still teams that are pretty heavy on like the owner side of it. Like I'm assuming that in TSM, like Reggie has a huge say in which players that they pick up, etc. But for like sports teams, like they're just doing all the high level stuff, like the general managers for all the high level stuff. And I feel like in League, what happened was teams didn't really have general managers. They just had team managers, which are like pretty much like the team bitch essentially. And they just like they just ended up changing the name from general manager to like, or team manager to general manager, just because it sounds better. And it just sounds like a more official role. But there was no difference to me, because like I went through the phase of like where my team manager became the general manager, and it's just like, wait, you still do the same thing. It just sounds more official. Where now they're actually creating the position so that you have somebody that controls like the entire vision of the team, and like is able to like essentially just like figure out like what direction the team is going, and when there needs to be changes, like they're the one that's going to like decide if it's a personnel decision or if it's a decision where like they need to change the structure of the team, etc.
I think a couple examples of that, of the older style, would still be Cloud9. Jack is heavily involved with a lot of the decision-making process hand in hand with Reaper. And that is a older model that teams are starting to move away from, but Cloud9 continues to find success with that. Whereas a newer model would be,
100 Thieves, obviously.
100 Thieves now with the hire of PapaSmithy, and probably still currently under contract. FlyQuest with Nick Pham as their general manager, and Invert. You could go with even Golden Guardians now with Danon as the general manager, head coach Anero. So there's Anero and Jimmy, but there are multiple different ways to do it. And it seems like because of the influx of experience from these sports teams, that's the way that everything's going, and finding some sorts of success.
I think it's influx of sport teams, and also just most teams getting bigger and bigger, and not just League of Legends, so owners can't be full-time GMs anymore. When Andy only had like TSM League of Legends to really worry about, and maybe like a little bit of CSGO and a few streamers, he can be a full-time GM along with being an owner. Same thing for Jack. But when you have like 50 players, 60 players in various games, and so much other things to worry about, like you can't be a full-time GM for the teams.
Got to make that myth money. So I wanted to bring that up just because we were talking about one facet of PapaSmithy's skill set, which is this almost an unparalleled network to the East, to Korea, to China, that a lot of teams, almost I would say no other general manager has. I think I'm confident in saying that, because he's the most recent and now with that network. What other skills and attributes do you feel like, because both of you feel like he's a good fit, but what other skills and attributes will he bring to 100 Thieves?
So he's universally respected, and that's really hard to do. When you have like a huge voice as an analyst and as a caster and just as a figure, you're going to piss off people. You're going to have your own opinions. You're going to call players bad. You're going to call teams bad when you see it to kind of have legitimacy. And some people go the full, like, I'm going to call people bad. Like, I'm not going to give a fuck. Like, most notably, I would say like Dom, Doran, LS to a certain degree. Like, they don't give a fuck about what other people say, and they just speak their mind. And some people are overly nice when they analyze games, and they'll brush around things, like mostly Riot casters whenever they do VOD reviews. And I think PapaSmithy found a really good middle where he showed he has really good knowledge and he's able to call people out and call teams out in a polite manner when he needs to. But he's someone that I would say is just so universally liked by anyone. Like, it's really hard to find someone that thinks like PapaSmithy is like a shitty person, or they don't respect his knowledge, or they don't respect him.
I mean, I respect his knowledge, but it's always really hard for me to know like how much casters really know, because like when you're casting a game, or like when you have like full vision, etc., it's a lot easier to like determine what is the right and like wrong decision. But it's like being able to fundamentally understand those things and like teach setups and like be able to like analyze situations before they happen without like seeing them play out, just based off like team comps, based off like status of the game, all that stuff. Like, it's really hard for me to judge how much knowledge they actually have, because like a lot of people can have good knowledge, but it's like, do I think that PapaSmithy necessarily has more game knowledge than like LS or somebody? Like, I'm not sure. So it's really hard for me to like analyze somebody like PapaSmithy. Like, I like PapaSmithy. I think he's a good caster. I have no clue like how knowledgeable he really is on the game, or like how confident I am that he can lead a team to winning, you know, as the general manager. I don't really know. I don't think he's ever had a situation like that before, where he's actually had to like compete in a way and like prove his worth. It's always been like he was a caster in LPL, he was a caster in OCE, then he went to Korea. It's always been in the casting situation. So like, I feel like this is just his first step to like prove that he isn't just like, you know, a likable guy that talks about the game and is nice to listen to. This will like kind of prove to me that he like does know League of Legends. He does know like what creating a winning culture is. Like, I think that this is like his big test.
So for like the game knowledge part, I'm sure he'll rely on Kelsey, he'll rely on Prolly. Like, he has his own game knowledge, but he can rely on people around him that has better game knowledge. One thing I think that really plays to his strengths is he used to be a former psychologist for like school kids, if I remember correctly. So I think dealing with League of Legends and the players that are involved within League of Legends, and kind of the ego they might have and kind of the inexperience they might have, and like putting together a roster and really going through that problem should really help in terms of like the background he has. So I personally think he'll do well, but as you said, he's never been in a competitive environment, and it's really different. Like, being in a competitive environment and doing that day to day of like, just working with players and working with management. So yes, there's a chance. Or go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, based on his temperament, he seems like he'd be the type of person that would be able to like at least be rational. I feel like that's one of the hardest things to do as a GM or just like when you're in the competitive environment in general, is to like be able to like control your emotions and like, you know, come to the right conclusion based on logic and not based on like how you feel. And I feel like he's the type of person that like he seems very even keel, like has like a very like mellow temperament. So I feel like that's really good for a situation like that, because it feels like he's the type of person where when he's in 100 Thieves, when he talks, people will listen. People will respect him enough to like put value on what he says. So I think that that's good. It just has to like a lot of it's just going to come down to like, does he make the right decisions? I feel like before with 100 Thieves, you can say that with the amount of money that they spent, their roster was a failure in this last year. Like, they ended up like having one of their best players, like one of their star Korean imports that they probably played hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, ends up on the bench, and that's like the only way they can win. They had like Saligo playing LCS games, for God's sake. Like, it was really bad there for a while. So I think if the same thing happens next year, you have like a person that I guess you can blame for it, where it's like, this is the person that will be trying to take this 100 Thieves, which is like 7th place 100 Thieves. He's going to try to make them like a top 3, top 4 team. So I guess based on that is how I'm going to be judging like if he, you know, did a good job or not.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. When people would talk to me and ask me, like, do I think Prolly is a good coach? One answer I constantly gave them is the more he was responsible for this roster, the worse of a coach he is. And the less he was responsible, the more I can't say as much. But yeah, the roster building of 100 Thieves was really flawed. And this time we'll know for sure, like, who's responsible for it. And we can actually get to judge GMs and we can actually, yeah. Like,
and he should have all the tools possible to make a good team, right? He has
the money,
world champion AD carry, and he has a lot of fucking money. He has the access to Korea. He has the access to China. Like, if he fails here, I don't think you can be like, oh, well, it was unlucky. Like, this is a team that is set up to be like this. They're a team that is trying to be a championship team. Like, they actually have championship aspirations. I know we talked a lot before about teams that say they have championship aspirations, but based off like their actions, you tell that they actually don't. This is a team that I feel like has championship aspirations, and like they have the means to get there if it's done right. So like, this is a team that could easily win if you have good enough setup from the general manager.
Correct. And I think because of the brand, they have the pull power of some of the top teams in the world because of 100 Thieves, because people are willing to come and play for the hype beast, the clout, everything that 100 Thieves and Nate Shot has built. And they've shown that they're willing to splash out to get whoever. So I think it's a pretty cool situation here for PapaSmithy. On the flip side, though, it almost doesn't give a lot of space for failure or not finding success. The bar for success seems relatively high here because although they've had bad results, it feels like, oh, now they have a central figure here. Everything should be fixed. Doesn't it seem like he's walking into a high pressure situation?
Definitely, but he's not an idiot. So whenever you're put in like roles, right, you set expectation with the management, or you at least try to like be reasonable with the management. Like, if you're given a roster, like, you talk to the management about, hey, what are your expectations for this year? And they'll tell you, well, I want us to make playoffs, I want us to make worlds. Like, they'll tell you an expectation, and then you'll reason with them, and then you should both arrive at an expectation that's reasonable. I'm sure, like, he's not telling them, hey, next split we're gonna win a championship. Next split they probably at least want to make playoffs, and they probably have like a championship timer. Like, they probably told him something like, we want a championship within 3 years, we want a championship within a year, maybe it's 2 years. Like, they'll have that championship window, and then it's up to him to do that step by step to get there. If he's dumb, then sure, like, he'll join 100 Thieves and he'll tell them, we're winning a championship in spring. Like, that's just, I don't think he's that stupid, and I just don't believe he's that stupid, and I don't think 100 Thieves will have that kind of expectation. But he needs a game plan on where the roster is going and where the team is going and what the timeline for that is.
Yeah.
Dom, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think next split it's like a top 4 thing. Like, top 4, if you get even 4th place, even if you get shit on and you get 4th place, like, that is the success that you want to see. I mean, a lot of people that are kind of like, I guess, like, central figures for the team, or at least I consider it, have been able to like really turn teams around and like get teams to like the top 4 breaking point pretty easily. So I feel like that's just like what you need to see. Like, if this team is still struggling, you still see this team like bottom of the table, not being able to make playoffs, then I feel like it's just like, it's not a realistic expectation. Like, you need to at least, like, I don't think going from 7th to 4th with like a big move like that, and having like the means that 100 Thieves has is crazy or anything.
Okay. My next question for both of you, but more for Dom because you haven't done it yet. Going from being an entertainer, because that's what we'll consider PapaSmithy as beforehand, going from being an entertainer to the competitive side, what are some of the things that you have to take into consideration before making that move voluntarily? Like, I think my situation going to Golden Guardians was different because I was already being let go from Riot at that time, and so Golden Guardians worked for me. But for you guys that have an established career, what would be some blockers from doing that? What are the things that he had to overcome to make this decision?
Well, I mean, you just have to be willing to like deal with the stress. Like, when you're an entertainer, somebody like when you're a caster, you obviously want to perform well. Like, he's going to work hard on casting, but it's kind of like there's a lot less ups and downs with something like that. With being a general manager, there's going to be a lot more stress because, like I said, I mean, if the team starts losing, you're the one that's responsible. You feel like shit. People will be like, you're going to have Reddit threads like, what is PapaSmithy doing? He was supposed to be saving this team. Like, the team is like doing just as bad as before, if not worse. Like, he's failing as a manager. Like, there's just going to be much more pressure on you, and you have to like understand like that it's worth it. I mean, I guarantee that he's making more money being the general manager for 100 Thieves than he was casting LCK. Like, there's just no way that he would make the decision. If not, in my opinion, like, I just can't imagine it. So like he's taking on more pressure for more money, and it's like you actually just have to want it that much. Like, if you are taking on more pressure, the only way it's going to work out better is if you put in more effort. So it's like whatever he did in Korea, like I'm sure he worked hard on casting, and I know he like did VOD reviews and stuff on his Twitch channel. Like, he seemed like a pretty hardworking person. He's gonna have to work even harder than that to like make sure that 100 Thieves succeeds.
I mean, a lot of times, especially with a lot of different kinds of careers that's not competitive, you have like hours. Like, you have a 9 to 5, you have hours like where you need to do your thing. Like, as a caster, I'm sure you have your prep, and then you do your casting, and then you can go take a break. Roles like general manager, roles like head coach, roles like active starting player, like, your life is League of Legends, and it's just 24/7, and you don't really get a break. And the moment you take a break, people around you aren't taking a break, and you're responsible for things. And general manager is not one of those positions where the amount of things you need to do is finite. It's infinite. You can always be doing something, and yeah, it's a different kind of stress, and you're always worrying about something. Like, it's nonstop. It messes with you in a different way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that something that he's gonna have to like, do is like, there's so much time. Like, general manager, it isn't some. I think that the one thing that's a lot different is there's not as much direction. Like, when you're a caster, you have like the matches that you have to watch. Like, you have to understand like what's going on. Then there's the matches you have to cast. You have to understand like how the teams are doing, the dynamics within the team, like, and just like be able to create storylines and things like that. Whereas being a general manager, it's not as defined. It's like, no one can really say like, oh, you need to watch like this much of like your team scrims. You need to do this much interaction. You have to like be talking to sponsors this much. It's more just like off feel. Like, you have to kind of just be able to judge. It's like, where's my time best used? Like, where should I allocate my time right now? And I think that that's just where it's going to be like, is he smart about what he does? Like, is he as efficient as possible? I think it's more of like an efficiency job and being able to like monitor everything and do everything yourself, rather than just like having your job like kind of like spoon fed to you in a way.
So 2 more questions on this before we move on to EU. First one, what do you foresee PapaSmithy having the most difficulty with in the transition? Specifically with this 100 Thieves team logo?
Initial roster acquisition is going to be really important, and I think that's where they might struggle a bit. I think that's a hard thing for anyone going into it. Maybe not so much for 100 Thieves, if I have to give it more thought, because they have the money and they have the branding. But it's just that starting point is so important, and him getting it right from the get-go, it's going to be hard. I think he will get the right players eventually, but if you're going to get the right players from the start, it's going to mean so much for the first split and the first year. So I think that's a point where he could struggle.
It's also like, it's really hard when he just comes into it to make the best possible decision for like every position, because there's going to be like decisions that could be really hard to make that I feel like if you don't have the experiences, you're not going to just jump to automatically. So one of the things I'm thinking about is like, how good is a player like Bang for your team? Like, is there a possibility that they don't go into next year with Bang? I feel like there's almost none. I feel like he's just going to keep the peace no matter what. But being like a really good general manager, you have to be able to like look at the team as a whole and make the tough decisions. And I feel like maybe he'll be more on the safe side with his decisions earlier on.
All right. And then like, Dom, for both of you guys, what is the first move? You're now PapaSmithy. What is your first move for 100 Thieves in 2020?
Well, there's an obvious one that I know we're both thinking.
I know. I'm letting Dom go first.
Yeah. So your first move is you cut Someday, because you need a mid laner, import a mid laner, and then you try to find a stable top laner within LCS. So you try to acquire like a middle of the pack top laner that's not an import. So you try to acquire somebody like Solo, like Viper, somebody like Hanser, or I guess Hanser would be like kind of on the higher end of that. But yeah, you want to get a native top laner that's stable, like somebody that you know is going to be okay. So like the 3 that we said, and then you just need to get a beast mid lane import. You need to get a mid lane import that's actually going to succeed in the LCS. That's the hardest part.
All right, Loco. I think I know what you're going to say, but go for it. What is your first move for 100 Thieves?
Okay, to be way more technical about things, first you write down roster case scenario. So as Dom said, like maybe Hanser is available, then I definitely want to get Hanser, and then I know where my imports lie. maybe Cody Sun has a falling out with Clutch Gaming, then I definitely want to start from Clutch Gaming. So you make different scenarios of what kind of rosters are possible, and then you see the likeliness of it, and then you go from there. Like you have your dream roster, and then you have like rosters after that. But the most obvious move that we should all really talk about, and I want you guys' 2 cents on, is 100 Thieves Bjergsen. Like, what's the likelihood of Bjergsen leaving TSM? And yeah, what's the likelihood of him actually joining 100 Thieves, and where does it go from there?
I mean, that would be such an insane move. I mean, Bjergsen is so valuable because the fact that he's not an import, by like, obviously like Riot ruling, allows you to like potentially have like the dream roster that you wanted last year, right? Which last year I'm sure that they thought that they're like he would be a stable, decent mid laner.
Yeah.
And they wanted to just have like, you know, super strong top laners, super strong bot lane. Like they wanted to have the best AD carry, the best top laner in the league, and then like stable mid jungle, and then just have like the mid jungle play to one of the sides. They wanted to be like kind of like budget Team Liquid, where you have like double lift impact and then you fill it in with like role players. But I think that like I don't think that team, even with an insane mid or like a top tier mid, would be as good as they thought it would. Like I don't see, let's say the roster would be like someday amazing Bjergsen, Bang, Afromo. I don't know if that team is like better than Cloud9 or TL right now. So I feel like it's almost like I feel like you almost kind of want to go for something a little bit more fresh, which is why I'd prefer to see them having like import mid laner,
Larson.
like young. Yeah, young, talented import mid laner. Somebody like Larson could be great. Somebody that's like similar to Leader. I don't think Leader's ready for a spot like this, but like that's just like the type of player that I would want. Like a young, talented mid laner with a lot of room for improvement, either Korean or European, and then then you just run like a stable North American top laner with it. I'm kind of like over Someday for this team. Like, I don't feel like he's going to carry them to a championship. He just doesn't seem like that type of player. He seems like he's like a good pop-off player. Like, he'll have pop-off games, but it doesn't seem like he's super, super consistent. And especially if you watch like the games last split, the beginning ones, he just doesn't seem as dominant as he was before in terms of like being this beast laner. It's not like he can just play a carry into every matchup and just get a massive CS lead. So, just especially even with the way the game is played, I just want to see stable top laner, keep amazing, and then a young, talented mid laner. The reason why I think that like young mechanical talent is so important to this team is like I think you need a good mix when you're building a team of like veteran, like stable players, and then like beast players that can like pop off hard. I feel like that's like ideal to have. And when you have people like Aframu and Amazing, like I don't think Amazing is ever going to be like an insane mechanical jungler again. Like if it becomes like a Nidalee Graves meta or something, I feel like he's just a super low value player. So with players like Amazing, I feel like you need to have like the mechanical beasts in lane, which is why I think that like having somebody like solo top, like somebody that is similar to somebody like Showmaker mid, like that's going to be the best situation.
I can't believe we're living in a world where 100 Thieves Bjergsen is like not option number one. Like I
promise you it is option one. No, like Dom is talking in more of I would say less sense, but I think almost every general manager, if just given the choice,
I don't think there's a chance that they get Bjergsen. I don't know why people always say that, but it's like I just feel like Bjergsen's not joining 100 Thieves.
I think it's way more likely that he stays on TSM than anything else. Like if he was, but also I'll say this: it's way more likely he stays on TSM than anywhere else. But if Bjergsen was gonna leave, I think this would be the year.
This would be the year, exactly. I think that's my point. And I also think that we're forgetting that swap out Amazing for Dardoch, and now there's some firepower there for that roster that we've basically been talking about for TSM for a while, and then keep Someday. I think Someday is like a Hoonie that needs to be kind of not coddled but played around. Like needs to feel good to also play well as well. Like when Golden Guardians, one of our few wins was against 100 Thieves, he was like crying and upset and by himself. And I think when the team doesn't kind of coddle that kind of player that has been so good for so long and then starts to dip in form a little bit, then he doesn't come back. But I think if you build around that, I think that's kind of like an important thing. And a Someday Dardoch, Bjerg, Bang, Afro roster to me sounds challenging. It sounds challenging to that top three.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're kind of scared of players like Dardoch at this point. Like, and I think that Amazing kind of proved his worth within like the 100 Thieves culture. You know, it's like it feels like when they had like they tried to go for like a bunch of like individual beast players and stuff. Like like Ando was supposed to be a young talented jungler. You have Someday, like etc. But Amazing was the first player that like joined their team and gave them an identity where it's like, okay, now you play like a certain style. You play like tank junglers, like stable, like isolated top laners, and then you just play towards bottom and like get bottom ahead, and then Bang is like your main carry. But that was the first time where I saw an actual style come from 100 Thieves. So I feel like he is like huge value in terms of that. And I think that they kind of want to like, now that they have like some identity, some team identity, I think they're going to try to like fill in that with just like upgrades to the players. They want to like keep that identity but make it better, especially when you look at NA and how teams how teams have success. Like if you look at Team Liquid, they've literally just played around bot for 2 years straight. Like that's just like that's what they do, right? But I feel like 100 Thieves can just be like a worse version of TL, and that could be like a starting point for them.
Yeah,
They just need a good starting point. They need somewhere to start because, as you said, like they have pieces they have to make big decisions about. I don't even think like it's 100% they should keep Bang. Like they should really assess like, is Bang Afro gonna work out? Is Bang different support gonna work out? Do we go with Afro with young AD again? Like they really need to figure out what they're doing from bot lane.
Yeah, it's hard to say because like I think it'd be a weird time for them to let go of Bang because like he looked like garbage the whole season until like the end. Like this is like the time where he started picking it up and looking like a top tier AD carry at like the end of this split. And I feel like now is like if you're gonna have any hope for the player working out, I feel like now is when you have to like at least see what he looks like next season.
Is Bang the most untouchable player on this roster? Because most of the time when GMs come in, everything's under the microscope. But is there a player on this roster that is safe or the most safe? And is that Bang or is that Afro?
I think Bang is the most safe.
Oof, that's a hard one. Bang or Afro?
Right.
Maybe
you
even
don't think
Amazing.
there's any chance they'd kick Afro?
I think there's chance. I think, what is it? If you go into the situation where things were like not working and you feel like, oh, there's a player I have to keep for sure, it's really bad. I really hope Papa assesses things from like an objective point of view and he doesn't have any kind of bias towards like players with histories. Just look at what they are right now and look at how next year is going to look. I think that's something really important that he needs to do. I guess if I had to pick...
It's just really hard. Like, I just can't imagine PapaSmithy coming into the team, 100 Thieves, and like first move is like kicks fucking Bang. That'd be so alpha. I don't know if he has it in him.
If it makes sense, then do it, right? Like, I don't know what his contract is like.
Yeah, the thing is though, like, if he does that, right, even if it's the right decision, if the team doesn't perform well after, he is going to get absolutely shit on for it. So that's why I feel like somebody who's new to the position is going to be more like safe with the personnel decisions because he doesn't want to just like kick potential like really really good players and then just
kick
like
a world champion.
Yeah, you just like first thing is kick a world champion. I mean, it's so hard for people to kick a world champion. Like Piglet was playing bad for like years, right? And how long did it take for TL to actually kick him? You know, it's so hard for.
And Steve was in love with Piglet.
Yeah, exactly. But that most like GMs and stuff are in love with like the idea of a world champion.
Yeah.
They're like, this guy has the potential. Like we've seen this guy win everything, so that means that he can do it again, right? And it's like not always. Like some people are able to win in certain circumstances, and then with time and different circumstances, they're not capable of winning anymore.
I hope if Bang is the right choice to kick, then he does kick Bang. But as we talked about, it's most likely not going to be the right choice. I just hope he has the onus to make his own decisions, and he's not afraid of, I can't kick a world champion. I can't kick like a multi-time LCS winner. Like he has to do what he has to do.
All right, so PapaSmithy taking over 100 Thieves. We ran over multiple different avenues that he can go and some of the challenges that he'll face. We wish him the best of luck. And 100 Thieves probably better fortunes than the 2019 season. And hopefully they'll be able to make it to Worlds. And speaking of teams making it to Worlds, let's talk about EU. LEC fans, stand up. We've got your Gauntlet, the weird Gauntlet.
It's such
I was really confused. Yeah, I was really confused at the very end, but I was like, why is Fnatic playing in this? And then I was like, oh, okay, they're playing, which I think is kind of interesting. I think it's kind of interesting. But either way, the team that made it all the way through was Splice. They had to play every single round, and they were able to succeed both in a nail-biter fashion and then a dominant performance against Origin, or against Schalke, and then getting dumped by Fnatic. But those were at least scrappy, fun, fighting games. Let's start back at the Origin Splice matchup, where we saw Nuke Duck continue to expand his ocean of champions playing, all of a sudden bringing out Nautilus, and then we got a solid counter with the Corki, where Corki was like a Splice specialty throughout. Guys, what were your thoughts on that series as a whole?
Dom, you first.
You go first. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it just in EU, the way it works is like Fnatic and G2 are so much better than everyone else that like even judging some of these teams, like because they get shit on by everyone else, like it's so hard to like know, is Europe actually that strong, or are these teams just like, or is it kind of like NA where like we have one good team and then everyone else is kind of like not so good? Is EU just two good teams and then everyone else is not so good? Because when I see Splice play, there's nothing that like stands out where I'm like, damn, this team is better than like some of the Korean teams, right? Like when I look at Splice, which is like their third seed, and I compare it to like Damwon, I don't feel like Splice is stronger than Damwon, or like I don't feel like Splice would win a series against Damwon.
They're clutch tier.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't even know if they're clutch tier, because I feel like clutch is even worse than that. I feel like clutch is bad.
I thought you were gonna say okay.
Yeah, no, I feel like clutch is like lower than the other ones, but I don't know. I mean, Splice is weird. Like they can definitely win games. Like they know how to win games once they like get to a certain point. But it feels like their early games are just so random and like so inconsistent. It's just like they're almost just like playing and then just like, I hope that we get to 30 minutes where we actually know how to win.
So for me, I actually didn't catch the Origin one, but I saw a lot of the Splice versus Schalke one. Schalke looks so fucking bad. Like, dude, they're mid, and also I had a really high opinion of Trick because Wonder told me most European junglers were bad, and there's two that are standout good, which is Jankos and Trick. And he said he would rate those like the top two, so I expected a lot from Tricks. I knew Abadage was kind of meh, and I knew Abadage really struggled versus the higher tier mid, but I was so disappointed by Trick also. Like, just the combination of their mid and jungle got rolled over by Splice every single time. Like, it did not... People talk about better bot meta, but yes, the person that wins bot usually wins, but bot lane sometimes has so little agency, and it's dependent on how much control mid and jungle has and what they do to you. When you're getting dove over and over again, there is no better bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing about Trick is he's good, but he's good in like the way that like Amazing's good, where if you put him in even situations, I would take like almost any jungler over him. Like if you put him in like 2v2s, 3v3s, I would take much like most other players. But Trick is like normally smart. Like he knows like which lanes to pressure, like when to be like ganking, how to path. Like he has good fundamentals. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Trick is definitely overrated within EU. I've heard that he's like a top 2 jungler a bunch of times, right? It's like on Reddit, and then Wonder says it, etc. I don't know why people don't respect Broxa more. I feel like Broxa is like, I think Broxa is just better than Trick. Like he's better mechanically, and I think he's smart about the game as well. And just in general, I feel like Brox is underrated. Like I know that he's had like bad games. He didn't play particularly well on Gragas. Like he's prone to making mistakes, but I'd rather have a player that has like more upside than someone like Trick. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Origin series was weird. I did watch a decent amount of the Origin series. Like, I didn't like the drafts a lot of the time. They were like just some funky drafts, and then their jungler, I forget what his name is. It starts with a Z, and then he's like a Russian guy. Zanzara. He just looks like, it's so random that I guess Cold got sick, and then he just couldn't play in the most important matches of the entire year. Like I don't know. It's just weird to me that he was playing this.
You called out Cold.
Well, I mean, I just feel like Cold like should have been play. Like, how sick was he that you can't play Gauntlet? Like, that's like the only matches like if you can sit up, how are you not playing Gauntlet?
You know, sometimes when I'm not saying that they had like internal fights or anything. I actually have zero inside information, but sometimes when there is like fights within the team, or they feel like the academy jungler is better, they'll say like, "Oh, this person got sick. Oh, they had to visit their family." It might be an excuse. I have no idea, but that is an option.
It just seems so weird because like if I was never too sick to play an LCS match in my entire life. Like
was
I would
there a
get
time
like
where you played sick? Like
yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I played like when I had like my like when I first started getting like my panic disorder, and I was just like having them like all the time, like 4 times a day on stage. I would have them. I had to like have like doctor's permission. Like the doctors had to like, give me a note to LCS, to like say that like I'm allowed to like take a pause for it, because you were not allowed to pause for like I think they're much more lenient about pausing now, because people like pause to go to the bathroom now.
No, so you can't just randomly pause to go to the bathroom. Like they tell you have to go to the bathroom before, and it has to be extreme. I'm not gonna name players, maybe because they don't want to be named, but there is a player with like a bladder problem, and they got a doctor's note, so this player can call his own pauses without talking to the ref in a non-T5 situation.
Yeah, I saw like multiple like bathroom breaks this year. I think Mickey X did like a bathroom break recently as well, or so like somebody in EU I remember doing that as well. I don't know. For me, it was like to be able to pause the game. Like I would need to like get a doctor's note like saying that I do have panic disorder, I have been diagnosed, and that I need to like be able to stand up and like walk outside. So yeah, I mean, I was like in a horrible condition. I was still playing LCS. So, like I don't know how dead you could be. Like the only time I wouldn't be able to play LCS is if I was literally like hospital, like bedridden, like cannot actually leave the bed.
Most players I know played sick also. There was definitely time Bjerg played sick. There was a time where Dardog was dying and he also played. Like most players, especially like this is for a regular LCS match, they really fucking want to play, and it takes a lot to stop them from playing.
Yeah, so then it's like you have your Gauntlet, which are the most important matches that you play the entire year, and that's like when you're too sick. I don't know. It just seems so weird to me. Like I just wish that there was more information, because if I ever was too sick to play, like you better believe like on Twitter I would be like, this is what's happening. Like I am like fucking dying. Here I am at the hospital. Like I would be like giving context to it. It's just so weird to be like, yeah, he's sick, so we're just playing with our like B tier junglers. I don't know.
Yeah, Twitch chat said that apparently Cold was in the hospital. So we can check and see and verify later, and that does kind of give a little bit of credence. But I do think it's but
like that makes sense. Like
this is your most important.
Yeah, but that's pretty fucking unlucky then. If he's like randomly so sick, because I don't know. I would feel like they wouldn't get any practice with Zanzara until like the matches then, right? Because like if a player is like just a little bit sick, like you're gonna always try to like get him there. Like it's rare that you'll know like 4 or 5 days beforehand that you're gonna be so sick in 4 or 5 days that you're not gonna be able to like play a video game. I feel like that's pretty extreme. So I assume that that it's really unlucky they just get no practice with they get 0 practice with Zanzara. And like I don't know, he's just a weird player. Like the only thing I knew about this guy before seeing him play these matches was like that Trundle flash that everyone memed, where he like started red and then he flashed over
the Camille pathing
Dragon Wall. Yeah, he did the Camille pathing on Trundle. That was the only thing that I saw from him, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of troll. I mean, I guess it could work, but like it's a 5-minute cooldown just to like save 5 seconds and potentially avoid getting seen on a ward.
Yeah,
that's all I knew about him.
The hospital thing is like really big, because yes, like that is like the level of sick you need to be for players to not play. Like you have to be like hospitalized, and like you physically cannot go for players to not play. Like everyone just wants to play so much. So I mean, sorry for speculating, but yes, like this is the level that League of Legends players go to make sure like they play, especially for matches like Gauntlet. That's like one theory or a few best of 5s to make sure if you can make worlds or not.
Yeah, to validate your whole year or not, basically. Especially a team like Origin that, even with Zanzara in, made it to all 5 games. Do you feel like, I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit of the series, but just talking about Splice in general, do you feel like the best team did go in Splice rather than Origin or a Schalke that didn't shit the bed?
The only one sour note I have is Splice didn't beat Rogue to go. I thought Rogue was a really interesting team. I know they started out as like a mean team in terms of like, oh, TSM is worse than this, but they actually ended up being like a pretty decent team. Like their mid and late game was shaky at times, but I thought they were one of the most exciting teams to watch outside of G2 Fnatic. Like Splice and Schalke can get so boring. I know they're like the 3rd and 4th team, but they just got so boring for me sometimes.
Yeah, well, I just feel like Splice is, when you have that type of playstyle, I just feel like you don't really underperform or overperform much. You're like very consistently like a 3rd place team, but I don't know if that's good going into Worlds. Like I'd much rather see a team like Clutch, like Rogue, where they're like really explosive and they have like something that makes them like special or gives them some edge over like a standard team, I feel like a team like that is so much better to like have representing your region because it's like your third seed, right? So if they bomb out and they like lose in groups, it's not a big deal. It's like they're kind of supposed to lose in groups anyway, but they have the upside of like really, really surprising people. Yeah, which I just think is like super important. It's kind of like how Vitality last year, like they didn't make it out of groups, but they just like definitely made the group interesting. I mean, if it wasn't for like C9 performing pretty well against them, they would have made it out. They took games off Samsung, etc. So I don't know. I just think that just in general, having a more volatile team as your third seed is just more exciting, and I think it's just like better for your region going into Worlds than just having like Splice. Because like, do you really think that like there's any chance that Splice could make it to like semis? I feel like there's almost no chance. Like they're just gonna like they're gonna easily just like either lose in groups or like maybe they make it out second seed. Yeah. Like they squeak into playoffs and they're just gonna get decimated in the quarterfinals. So to me, it's not like that interesting.
So I just realized this. Rogue, because of that play that Larson kind of dicked around and accidentally killed himself in Corky Valkyrie himself in his pit. Yeah.
9/11 Corky.
They jeez.
Jesus, Dom, it's 5 days, Dom. It's been 5 days.
Dom, it's 5 days.
Yeah, I flew on 9/11, dude. I flew on 9/11.
Come on, man. There was a. Did you have the moment of silence? There was a moment of silence, like the airport stopped.
I mean, my whole flight was pretty silent. I did like an 11-hour moment of silence, I guess.
Dude, I was in elementary school, and I remember like we just got sent to the gym, and everyone like we weren't told anything, and we were told to wait until our parents picked us up. The teachers were not allowed to tell us anything, and we were just supposed to sit in the gym, and we're like, what the fuck is going on? Like we're just all there in the gym, and like there's people crying, like teachers are looking grim. I'm like, I thought aliens were invading. They were not allowed to tell us anything until
really?
They had parental permission.
No, we had like they just told us everything.
Oh really?
Yeah. We were watching.
They told us everything.
Yeah, we were watching it on TV at school. Like at school, they brought in the TV and they turned it on, and we were just like watching the fucking buildings fall and shit. It was crazy.
We were told to turn off the TV. We were told to all go to the gym. Teachers like sat around us, and we're just like sitting there. And then they're like, "We can't tell you anything. We have to wait until your parents have to pick you up. All your parents have been notified." And then I literally thought aliens were gonna invade us. I'm like, "What the hell is going on? Why can't they tell us anything?"
Were you in?
Texas.
At that time, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in Florida.
Protect. I was in Virginia, and because I mean it was so close to us, the Pentagon one. But my whole point was, can you imagine if Larson didn't do that, Rogue make it, they get the amount of championship points necessary to go into it, and then we have an opportunity to see them rather than a sick Origin or even Splice that now just got to make it in because it was Origin Splice at that 4 or 5 spot.
It's weird because I feel like it's so good for Splice that Rogue didn't make it in because like we saw how Rogue versus Splice looked, right? Like that was like a fucking stomp. I feel like they just match up poorly. I feel like if Rogue made it into the Gauntlet, then we would have either Rogue or Schalke going because I feel like it kind of would have played off just like the playoffs where Rogue just stylistically match up well in Splice, and then Schalke like are a little bit like more consistent than Rogue, and like they can win if the games go late, but Rogue will be like, pressing them early to actually just to actually like be able to hold on and like withstand the pressure.
Yeah, if Rogue made it in, say Rogue won that series against Schalke, that's Splice out. So the teams would have been Rogue Origin and then Rogue, the winner of Rogue Origin against Schalke. So that's just kind of crazy how that one play has kind of rippled all the way into Worlds today to the team that made it on in, Splice the 5th seed going all the way through.
Dude, Gauntlet's so crazy. I mean, TSM's one game from making it to Worlds, and Clutch is one game from not making it to Worlds. Like one game.
I'm wrong. It's Schalke. Schalke out.
Yeah.
It's Schalke out. Hey, fuck you guys. Schalke out. Thank you. Sorry, Twitch chat.
Yeah, because Schalke didn't make a playoffs spring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, all this hype for all the hype for Splice just disappeared for me in the Fnatic best of 5.
Really?
Yeah.
All the hype for Splice to me disappeared in the Rogue best of 5 in playoffs.
Well, there was a little bit that is also true, but the Fnatic Splice match was so brutal, and I also think it's so weird for Fnatic to play finals, not get a real break, and then have to come back and play Splice. I think that's such a weird system.
That was so weird when I was reviewing the VODs. I was like, wait, that's my fault for not knowing the full format until afterwards. But I was like, why?
I mean, their format is just weird. their format is just super weird. I don't know why they're like going with this like super edgy format where it's like, okay, like this guy gets to choose this guy, and then like they play one best of 5 that doesn't really mean anything. Like it just means that like the loser of it has to play another best of 5. I don't know. It just feels like there's so.
So apparently Chad is saying it's the 2018 100 Thieves rule, where with 2018 we set 100 Thieves as our second seed, and it wasn't the greatest thing. So apparently to prevent that, they have it. So yeah, it's the 2018 100 Thieves rule.
I mean, I guess I think that that's probably good at least, but I don't. It just seems really weird because I mean, second and third seed, it doesn't matter that much. Like a lot of the time, you know, like you can get a better group in third seed, and like a lot of people value third seed over second seed because you get to play play-in, so you like warm up to like being on stage and stuff. That was one thing that
Cloud9.
that was one thing that
WE
G2 or just like in the post game lobby, because I was watching like the post game lobby after the Gauntlet, they were saying it's like there is value to playing in play-ins that people don't really view, like just being able to like get comfortable playing at Worlds and like playing with your team and being like in a kind of stressful environment, because like I mean you are gonna have to, like, even if it's versus an easier team, you have to play a best of 5 versus a team, loser is out, winner goes to the like group stage. That actually allows teams to kind of like get into gear. So yeah, I think the post game lobby was like Reckless, Mickey X, and Kabi, and they were all talking about how like play-ins is not even that bad. So like it doesn't really matter if a team gets third or second seed.
Okay, I just think we don't have the example of a team bombing out from EU or NA in that.
C9 was one game off. C9 was one game off from bombing out.
Yeah. But can you imagine? I guess it's like, can you imagine the catastrophe of C9 didn't make it, and then how much like more of a boost they did because they did win best of 5.
They went to semis. They were one game away from not making actual Worlds, and then they went to semis.
Yeah, but that, I guess that's like the whole argument is like, especially for these teams, like for example, G2 last year went through play-ins and they ended up in semis as well, and then Fnatic the year before went through play-ins and then got out of groups as well. So like you've had a lot of success stories of these teams having to play play-ins but still like getting out of group stage even. So I don't know. I think there is like value in play-ins that people don't necessarily like. It's not like, oh shit, this team has to go through play-ins. It's like the worst possible thing. Also, like, yeah, I mean, just seeding in Worlds is so weird because of the format and because of like how teams are just grouped into pools. Like, there's no like strength based on region, right? So like, let's say when Korea was super dominating in like 2016, 2015, etc., and you had like Rocks Tigers and SKT as like the two best teams like in the entire tournament, probably. You just like didn't have like the Korean second seed is the same value as like an NA second seed, and it's like, oh well, you could get like even as a first seed, right? Like the seeding is just so like you don't get the advantage you should in Worlds, in my opinion. Like if you're a first seed team, like some of the group stages that people even showed
group
online,
of life,
just
group of death,
yeah, like the group of death, you can have such a fucked up group even if you're G2. You can be like the first seed and then be getting like second seed from Korea. You could have like Griffin in your group, and then you could have like IG in your group because they're third seed from China, and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, how am I even supposed to play the game?
The biggest,
and then
like,
you get clutch gaming.
no. So the biggest like offender is the third seed from Korea. So how that works is China won last Worlds, so China gets their third seed protected, and that they get to join Pool 2. Korea didn't win Worlds last year, so their third seed doesn't get protected, and then they have to go in through play-ins. So according to Riot, like seeding, Dom1 is as good as a wildcard team. A wildcard team that makes it in is gonna get the same kind of seeding as Dom1.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing, is because each group is like a first seed, 2 second seeds, and a third seed. Like it's a pool 1, 2 pool 2s, and a pool 3. So it's like you can end up with like Griffin IG in the same group. And that's the 2 second seeds in a group. So it can be Team Liquid, IG, and Griffin in the same group. Like you can have like these insane groups.
To correct myself, because Chad is going crazy, it's not because China won Worlds last year, but it's because of 2 years of international performance. But yes, like the last 2 years of international performance, that supreme reason gets their third seed protected.
Then what is the what is the best way that we go about seeding teams then? How would you guys fix it? Because it sounds like we have a lot of issues with it, but not the clearest fix. And the protection of a seed doesn't seem to be sufficient right now.
Well, dumb ones should not be in pool 3. Like, they have to extend the pools to maybe 4 pools or something. Like, there's seed 1, and then there's seed 2, seed 3, and even seed 4. But dumb ones just cannot be in seed 3 and get the same kind of treatment or the same kind of level as, like, the wildcard teams. Like, wildcards should be treated like wildcard teams.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways to do it. I mean, one thing is, like, extending the tournament format, because right now it's, like, the 9 through 12th is just out. Right? Like if you're 9 through 12th, 9 through 16th is just out in the tournament. So if you place bottom 2 in any group, that's it for you. But there's a couple of things. So like what obviously like these are both going to be from the international, but either having like a more extended bracket where it's like the
Double
losers
limb.
yeah, like where it's double limb, or you just have like the 9 through 12 teams play like the 5th or 8th teams with a disadvantage in the series. So maybe it's best of 5 where the other teams have a 1-game lead or something like that, so that there is like some punishment for not placing well in your group, but you're not just completely out for it. That would kind of like help mitigate some of like the group disparities, because you always have group of life, group of death, and then you have like quarterfinal matches that makes no sense. Like there's some quarterfinal matches that we've had in the past, like H2K, which was like the 3rd seed from Europe, or maybe the 2nd seed from Europe that year. And then they play against fucking Annex, which is a wild card team from Russia, and that's your fucking like quarterfinal match, which is just like, what the fuck? Like, why are these teams here? The other thing is like making 2 big groups instead of having 4 groups. You have 2 big groups, and you have like half of each group go, because then every team is playing each other more. Then like you won't have as big disparities between the groups. Like both groups should be relatively like equal in skill. I think that could work as well.
This format just feels like World Cup, and like a huge problem with World Cup is like group of deaths and group of life, and it's like it just feels like Riot loves copying formats sometimes, and they love copying like big like well known for like big well-known formats like NFL, LCS copying NFL a lot of times, and it feels like Worlds is copying World Cup, and just it has the exact same flaws.
I think the issue with this being a direct correlation with World Cup is that there are more World Cup teams. There are 32 teams, and I think right now we have 24, which is more like the Women's World Cup. That's actually exactly the Women's World Cup. And one thing that the Women's World Cup does is that if they do have like 3rd place, the top 4 3rd place finishers in a group do get bumped up, kind of like what you were saying, Dom. And so I think it goes back to either adding more teams so that you have around 32, so that now it's an easier breakdown. You get a little bit more teams and you can create more derivatives of 32. And then also just having like a longer broadcast day. And I think yes, again, it goes back to expenses, and it goes back to having casters there that can do it in different languages, and that sounds difficult. But then also having that celebration of the fact that, hey, this one team that is representing this small region is playing, and celebrating that, and really making that the highlight of each match, and repeating that multiple different times, and not really worrying about burnout as much. I think that's where the big worry is, if you expand it but still broadcast every single game as its own standalone.
Yeah, I feel like Riot just does a lot of things where they're just like afraid to like, how should I phrase this? They're afraid to like do things that might be like slightly suboptimal for the masses, and then they'll just like target like one specific audience. So like when they do like the time zone format for Worlds, they're doing this thing where it's like, oh, we're starting it at like 11 a.m. on a weekday for European viewers. And it's like, okay, that like I understand like that they are trying to target China and things like that, but there's like a happy medium that I feel like they're not willing to go to. I feel like there's a way you can make this tournament format a little bit better without like completely changing everything, and they just won't do that in a lot of situations. Like they're just so like stuck on one thing, and I feel like they're like almost extremists in this way, where they go from one thing to like another thing. It's like, okay, well, we're either doing this tournament format or we're doing like nothing. Oh, we're either appealing completely to China or we're just like saying fuck China. Like there's no like happy medium when they come to situations like this. Like it's like, okay, what about if instead of starting it at like 5 or 6 p.m. in China, you start at like 7 or 8 p.m. in China, and like like the Chinese fans have to stay up until like 1 or 2 a.m., but then you get like an 8 a.m. start time in Eastern, or you get a 5 a.m. start time in Pacific, which is at least more watchable than what they have now. You get like a 2 p.m. start time in Europe, so like more people will be able to like watch after work. I don't know. I feel like there's like a happy medium where they could go to like make these things a little bit better, but they're just like, it's either we're doing this fucked up tournament format or we're just like doing something completely else.
Yeah, I think having Aiden here would have been really good for this specific topic, because I'm pretty sure everyone gets to give feedback on Worlds formats in general, just in a survey. I think I was able to do that, and then afterwards, it's a couple. It's not just one person. It's a couple people's full-time job to figure out what is the best format from a gameplay standpoint, logistics standpoint, technical standpoint, viewership standpoint, that have to suffice all these different things.
It's their full-time job, and it's the format stayed the same for last 3 to 4 years. There's people complaining about it. Holy shit.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to reel this back in. We spent a lot of time hitting on Worlds, and you guys at home will get to dive deep with us with our Worlds special, which will be coming later on now that we have all 24 teams locked in. But let's go back to that final 3rd seed and EU's 2 seeds, Fnatic and Splyce, and more specifically Splyce. I just want to get our final thoughts here on the format of the tournament, Splyce as a team, individual parts, and how far do we think they're going to go.
I think Splyce, I love Humanoid. I think Humanoid's been great. Zerze also has been impressive. North Scarian, I'm not so sold on. Kabe, I think
I'm not sold on North Scarian either. I think Kabe's pretty solid.
I think Kabe's good, but I hate the fact that he gets overrated sometimes. Like, there's players I just think are good.
Franchise player that they built around, blah, blah. They made that call a couple times.
And they just keep, like, there's certain players, like, I like them for who they are, and I think they're good players, but they just get so overrated where I'm like, now you're making me dislike this player because when I say I like this player, that's like the implications of like, oh, I think this player is this good. It's just, like, and Kabe's one of those. Kabe's great. I think 3rd or 4th, like, Perked, Reckless, Kabe upset, like, right there. But the way he gets talked about sometimes just rubs me such the wrong way.
I feel like he's just not a player that is like super, super hyped to watch. Like, I'd much rather watch somebody like Upset play than somebody like Kabe, because it feels like Kabe is just like reckless light, where it's like, I'm gonna like lane here and have good CS and I'll be strong later on, but I'm just gonna like, he's the definition of like, if you made a football reference, he's like an in-pocket quarterback, you know, where they're just like gonna like stay within their zone and they're gonna be fine like that, as opposed to like one of like somebody that's able to like, you know, roll out of the pocket and like.
Who's the Falcons quarterback? Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Kabe reminds me of.
Yeah, which to me is just like it's kind of like, it's like a bitch way to play. I feel like he just plays kind of like a bitch, but he's like a good bitch. So it's like, all right.
I'm so proud of you guys. Your sports reference here was fantastic. Way to go, guys. All right. I just wanted to double check to see, was Xerxes never gone to Worlds, right? That's what it was. I got confused with the IAM World Championship, but no, he's never gone to Worlds before. So it's Vizichachi's first time going to Worlds as well. Do you feel like, I don't know, I felt like he got picked on a ton in the Gauntlet. Just going back, I think he gave up first blood like 4 out of the 5 games in the Origin series, and got like dumpstered by Bwipo in the top lane in the Fnatic series. It just felt like
Fnatic was trolling. Nemesis was at LS's chat the day before, and then he's like, I'm gonna build multiple Morellos, and he built multiple Morellos on Cassio. Like, dude, they were trolling. They weren't giving shit.
I feel like that they've kind of picked that up from G2, where they're like, all right, we need to have like a little bit more like swagger when we're playing, instead of just being like this consistent team. Because I feel like Fnatic's always been uptight, and I feel like one thing that G2's done for LEC in general is like, they've like showed that it's like, it's good to just have fun with the game, because when you're having fun with the game, you're more kind of like in the moment. It's like, all right, like, let's do this. We're like, we have whatever set up. Let's just like, this is what we got. Let's try to win. Whereas when things are super uptight, I feel like you're more like, one thing goes wrong and it like mind fucks you. So I feel like they're just trying to be more relaxed when they play, because I think that in general in Europe, it's been like, the more relaxed, the more comfortable a team is, the better they play.
Oh, completely random, but I did want to grab you guys' thoughts on it. What do you think about player champion hovers? Like Stixay always hovers Warwick, and then European players specifically will sometimes hover for their girlfriend. So I heard Bwipo hovers kha'zix for his girlfriend. I forgot who.
God, that is so fucking lame. Holy shit.
Did you ever do that?
Hell no.
I forgot who it was, but someone has a girlfriend named Dory, so they hovered Draven, then Orianna, so it's Dory.
It was Vardogs. That's who it was.
Vardags, holy moly.
Alright, so chat saying it's Hillisan. Chat saying Hillisan hovers Draven Orianna because of Dory.
Wait, wasn't it Vardogs? I'm pretty sure it was Vardogs.
No, chat is spamming Hillisan.
Vardogs girlfriend Reddit.
Oh my god, I don't want to figure out they both dated the same Dory. I don't want to do this.
I'm not surprised. I mean, we could honestly go to the Fnatic VOD.
True. I have no idea.
But anyways, what do you guys think of like players and champion hovers?
I think it's cute, but it just, that you're known for that champion. But
well, it's not they're known for that champion. That's not why they're hovering it.
That they're known for doing that. It's another way to continue to build your brand. But I don't think it's anything special. What would you hover? Did you hover?
No, I never hovered.
Hover now. What would you hover now, Loco?
I never hovered, and I just always pick my champion, or I would always
all business here. Look,
yeah, no, I would always hover my champion, and also you can't in LCS like see the opposing, I think, without like looking to the left, but in OGN you were kind of at an angle where you could see other people, so sometimes I would hover champions and see if they would talk, like because it would mean certain things. If I hovered a certain champion, they started talking a lot, like it might mean certain things, like if they're really focused on the champion, or if I hover a champion and they don't say anything. In best of 5 it's very little information, but you can do some kind of fuckery with that.
So you're telling me you wouldn't hover the champion that uses Hextech Ultimatum right now, look?
She doesn't even know about esports, and she thought I played Heroes of the Storm. So.
Oh god.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you're starting.
Yeah.
What would you hover?
I would not hover, and I just always like hovered. Like if anything, I would just hover Shaco when I first started because I was like known as a Shaco one trick. That was like the people that knew me. But yeah, I mean, after a while, I just hovered whatever, like, because there's like things that you can do with hovering, right? Like you can actually hover champions that make sense that will get the team talking about something else, right? Like, so you could hover something like, let's say before you do like the Syndra AD carry game for like G2, if they hover Syndra for a while, and they change it to like a Xayah last pick or something, but if they hover Syndra, like the other team is going to be like, oh, they're hovering Syndra. Okay, it can be like flex into bot and mid. Okay, if he goes bot, like what can we play against that? Like people will just start talking and you can like kind of throw them off with just hovering things that like are viable picks. So I would always kind of do that instead, where it'd be like a champion that would be super OP that we might not play. I would like hover for a long time so people would like consider it.
Yeah.
Were you always like that focused? Was there ever a game where you're on stage where you weren't, like where that was a normal setting for like half a season or something, a couple of weeks? Because it sounds like both of you guys are like business, and we've heard in different like mic checks or things like that. Some teams go in and they're loose as shit. They're just talking shit to each other.
No, I mean the thing is, I was never on a team that was good enough. Like to be loose, you have to be like really, really comfortably like good. You have to be like comfortably in first or comfortably in second, something like that.
Immortal.
Whereas like, yeah, like we're like even the split that I played where we got first in the regular season, it wasn't like we like dominated the split and like shit on everyone and got first. It was like an up and down season and we just somehow ended up first, you know? So I guess the only match I had that was kind of relaxed was when I had to play tiebreaker versus CLG.
The sham game.
Yeah, the sham game where I'm pretty sure Smithy just hard trolled, and like we were like I wanted to troll, but like our coaching staff was like, no, you're not allowed to troll at all. Like you have to give it your all anyway, which sucked for me because like my team first picked me Nidalee, and then Smithy picked Nautilus jungle into Nidalee, and this is when Nidalee was the most broken champion. So it's like, of course, I'm just gonna like end with like 12 or 13 or whatever the fuck kills I had. Like it's just gonna be over based off champion pick. So like that game, I was pretty relaxed. Like it felt like a scrim because it felt like they weren't really trying. Like they wanted to get second and we also kind of wanted to get second, so like I was just able to like play like kind of like full like retard aggression where it's just like I don't care what happens, where normally you can't just be retarded. So I had that game, but that was pretty much it. Like the thing about I had fun games when I was on Dignitas back in the day, because we were actually good. But like when in LCS, I was never on a team that was good enough to like have fun games or like let up at all. Like our team was always shit, right? Like even when we were first, we were like probably like the shittiest first place team that's ever been in LCS. So like there was no option to do that.
I love the way that you recount your LCS stuff. Like it's really fun to because I think you've had like a solid LCS professional career, and you continually look back on it and you're like, this was shit, everything was on fire, I had to fucking fix everything, like everything was shit.
Well, I mean, it's just like, it depends on like the results you want, right? Like, so for me, like when I was on Dignitas in season 2, like that was like what I considered like success, because like we won like live tournaments, or we got first in like decent tournaments, or we got like second at regionals, second at like Hanover. Like it just felt like we were a good team. Like in LCS, like we were always like a bottom tier team that would make runs towards the end. So like it was like for the most of the time we were shit. We just never finished shit. But like if you look at our season, it's like we go into playoffs 11 wins, 17 losses, and we're like somehow the fourth or fifth seed, because like in the era that I played in, the top teams were so much better than everyone else, right? Like you had Cloud9 going like 24-4. Yeah, like Cloud9 would just go 24-4, where like the teams right now are not having as dominant like win rates for the most part.
NTL. Yep. All right, let's skedaddle out of here. Thank you for recounting your professional experience for us. Thank you, Loco, for a fantastic topic. Now let's head to thank you, Marc Merrill, for continually giving us more gifts day in and day out, week in and week out. We would not exist without you. So here's our segment called Thank You, Marc Merrill. We got a tweet here from
let me load
fighting
it.
Game community developer. Yeah, go ahead.
Give me one sec. Let me load it up.
I'll vamp it. And so our main man, Mike Zamont, Mike Z says, oh, right, Riot's making a fighting game. Just in case you guys didn't know, putting the S in Riot Games, because TFT is still within the same client, so it's not its own game. Even if I didn't love my job at Lab Zero Games, the COO dude who touched people's balls and farted in their face is still in meetings, is still employed there, and all the other stuff. No thanks. Plus, I judge anyone who writes Skull Girls. This is the developer, producer, one of the creators for the game Skullgirls, no space. I think that's what the quote was about. Where this email writes, this is Headhunters, and this is what happens, boys and girls, when you are a talented individual. People will come and find you for work. Hi, Mike. I'm reaching out to you because we're looking for experienced game designers to create amazing combat and social experiences in our new fighting game! Exclamation point. You'd be playing a huge part in Riot's multi-game feature, and could be impacting millions of players. We're specifically looking for a design leader for our new fighting game, so your background as a project lead and lead designer on Skull Space Girls could be an amazing fit. The fact that you've worn many hats as a designer, producer, engineer also makes for strong alignment with the R&D pace. And I think one of the best subtweets out of all that was, you mean you can fill 4 positions and we'll pay you 1 at the R&D pace. So this guy gets the email there, and I think Loco brought up a good point when we were talking about offline. It's now the kind of the air that Riot is now starting to present, the aura that it is.
No, people knew before. On Glassdoor and internally, people knew about Riot culture. Now it's just public. It's just like people knew internally, like people within Riot knew, people with Riot friends knew, and people within the development industry knew what kind of culture Riot had. But now it's just like public, so everyone's just like publicly like murdering them. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also that like just the way that Riot does things is they just kind of like gloss over it, right? It was like settled out court with the sexism lawsuit, and then they just like start tweeting about how fucking to never stop being a fucking bad person because of good people, you know? Like it's so fucking weird like how they are, you know? Like normally like it just people are more just like aware of like at least what people think of them like at the moment socially, but it feels like Riot is completely disconnected with what their public perception is. So it's like they're just surprised when like people like clap at them or like people like send things like that. They're like, oh, this is so rude, why would they say that? You know, like it's just like, well, I mean, obviously when you're when you're perceived as this like the most sexist company in all of video games right now, like that's how you're perceived. Like people are going to shit on you for it.
I love like the first line, like I'm reaching out to you because we're looking for experienced game designers to create amazing combat and social experience in our new fighting game. You'd be playing a huge part in Riot's multi-game future and could be impacting millions of players. This is a fucking canned line they put on every single email. If you're gonna headhunt people, don't write emails like this. Like write a genuine email about why you think this person would be important and do the research on like the games he's worked on. Like if you're gonna misspell, if you're I'm just shocked that there is a headhunter working for Riot and this is how he's like emailing people to work for them.
Well, I just assume that this guy, like, by the way that the email looks, it just doesn't look like it's special at all. Like that's kind of how most of Riot's messaging is. Like when they try to like say anything, it just they make these like super generalized statements where like essentially this email reads like, we're a fucking big ass company, come work for us. Like it's just like we're fucking popular. If you come work for us, people will know who the fuck you are. So that's how I read it. So
there's a Riot communication guy that tweeted at this. I want to show on screen. Where is he? Did he delete his tweet? There's like a... I'm trying to
Never
find
dies on the internet.
I only have a single screen and I don't want to make the viewers suffer through me going and finding the tweet. But it's just... He was tweeting about not everyone at Riot works for money. Like don't insinuate like that everyone at Riot works for money because this guy is saying, what is it? Even if not for the infinite money, like I wouldn't work there. But like that's not what he's like primarily saying. Like he's not saying there's people working there for money. He's saying like the culture sucks, like how you guys treat outsiders suck, how you guys treat people inside sucks. It's just God, like anytime like people from Riot like tweet us something like this, I'm like, you just missed the entire point. Like I want to see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. So this guy, Ryan Rickney. A lot of Rioters respect you and your work, and obviously we respect the decision of people who turn us down because of concerns about our culture. That said, when you imply that those of us who work here are just in it for the money, that's just extremely disrespectful, not cool. That's not what he implied at all. He implied, like, your culture's shitty, and you guys pay people a lot. Like, ugh.
I never understand that anyway, because it's like, yeah, almost everyone's in everything for the money. Like money is fucking important in this society that we live in, right? Like who is not in it for the money? Like, do you think that streamers would stream if they made no money? Do you think it like any of these people would do these jobs without money? Like for me, it's just like, it's such like a weird thing. Like that was a part of it where I'm like, I don't really care if people are in things for the money because it's like, that should be a motivator. And yeah, you should care about money if you're an adult.
Sure. And I just think, I don't think, at Riot, they're like, don't engage unless this is your expertise. That was something that they used to say all the time. And I didn't always.
Oh, really? Does Marc Merrill know about not engaging with things unless it's their expertise? Because, like, so far, I mean, he just tweeted out about, getting ELO boosted. And then he also, showed that he had no idea about how teams were run when he did the whole Love Me Some Reggie. And then he doesn't understand that content creators are valuable either. So it seems like consistently they don't have any idea what they're talking about when they start reaching out, and then their way of handling this is just deleting a bunch of tweets.
I mean, do you remember when producers within Riot were telling Monty and other casters, this is the industry standard, and Monty went around and checked the industry standard and he's like,
yeah,
no, this is the industry standard, and they're like, no, we set the industry standard.
Yeah, they're just they're so delusional about those things. It's like, that's not an industry standard, that's your standard then. Like the industry standard is what like most people are getting paid days. I remember that. It's so dumb about casting. Oh god, it was so dumb. I can't believe that. I guess that's a topic for another day though.
Yes. So my point is, I think it doesn't feel good when, again, right, a lot of the quote-unquote good people that do work at Riot, that do believe in the ideal of the game, and also get paid, get lumped in with the bad guys. So I think that's all that he meant. And I can see how he took it like, everyone is working just for the money because of the infinite money line that Mike throws in there. So yeah, but I just think you just got to take it. You just got to take this L. That's part of headhunting. That's part of being at Riot. So you're going to have haters.
There's people that are saying, well, how dare he leak this email? Is this even legal? Any kind of email you receive unsolicited, you can leak. It doesn't matter if it's a lawsuit. You can actually leak it if you're receiving the email unsolicited.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that just like in general, when I look at like these types of things from Riot, it's just like, yeah, you just have to like understand how your company is perceived in the space. It's like until things change, it's going to be different. Also, I just think that the way that their company works, it's not that everyone in Riot is bad. It's that the people at the top are bad. And like the corruption like seeps through like everyone else. You know, like even like the people that are good are not empowered to make change. So like if you are a writer that like I know a bunch of writers where I'm like, this person has a good head on their shoulders, they're involved and they fucking care. I guarantee those people, like for example, like Riot Zephyr, like Blastoise, like I feel like those people actually should be empowered to make changes within the game because they're like they understand it and they're willing to like put in the time to do things. Like Blastoise is like a data analyst, like he's a data writer or something like that, right?
I thought he was a TikTok writer.
Okay, but yeah, so what's his actual position? He's like a data analyst.
Data research insight. It's somewhere in that order. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's his job, right? But Blastoise is the one that's like on Twitter, like I am gonna talk to other content creators and like get information for like what they want changed and try to bring it to other people. But it's like no one else is doing that. The people that are at the top of Riot just think that they're right all the time. So like it's just a fundamental problem within the company that like the top of the company is just disconnected and they just think that they're right and they're not willing to like give the people that are actually doing good work within the company like the tools to make change.
Sure. All right. So I think
let's go to the next one.
Riot thing a lot. Let's head to now that we had our thank you, Marc Merrill tweet of the week. Let's head to the tweet of the week. We got a couple for you. This first one coming from Old Head. Good guy. We haven't seen him in a while. Hotshot GG. Hotshot GG weighing in on the TF Blade situation. That situation being that TF Blade was banned for 14 days while streaming in Turkey for, was it AFK?
Turkish dogs. He called people Turkish dogs.
Yeah, and he said that Turkish people are like unintelligent.
Compared to how many games were inted or AFK'd or trolled?
I mean, they just don't care. Like that's the thing is like there's just no. Blade and I were in the same house, getting into together every day, and we'd like sit together and we'd talk about it, and we'd show replays, and it's like even with the facts being in Riot's face, they still won't do anything, and that's how you know that like they're just not putting in any effort is because like in previous seasons, if somebody like Blade would like have these issues, like blatant issues, there would be some attention put on it. Like when we still had the League Partner Program channel, even like 5 months ago, when we still had the League Partner Program channel. There was so much that we could do to like actually make sure that these things are being resolved. But right now, I mean, the thing that's so frustrating is like, yeah, Blade definitely said things that he shouldn't say, but we all say things we shouldn't say, right? Like, I don't think that saying somebody, like, I don't think that he hates Turkish people because he said Turkish dogs. Like, it's just that NA, like, people just say dogs in general in League. Like, if I'm in a game, like, somebody will say, like, NA dog or something like that. I don't think it's like that person is racist against NA. It's just like, I don't know, they're just calling me an NA dog because I happen to be from NA. What he said, like, I don't think he has like the intention of being racist with it or there's like that much of a problem with it. I think the biggest issue is like they're letting it get to this point where like content creators get this fucking frustrated with them because like Blade is just getting inted, right? And then the next day he just has to play with the same people that are inting him over and over again. It just doesn't make sense. Like there needs to be some type of way where you can streamline. I mean, essentially the way that I've been doing is I've just been trying to make the game look terrible. Like I've just posted clips. If you looked at my Twitter in the last week I was in Europe, every single day I just posted a new clip of somebody running it down on me. Like Ghost Cleanse Nunu, Ghost Cleanse fucking Poppy, just people just running straight down the mid lane. Like all we can do as content creators is just like show what's going on in our games. Like that's leading to this level of frustration.
And there's no affiliation, right, with Hotshot and TF Blade beforehand, right? TF Blade is a TL creator, not a CLG creator. Never was, right?
But TF Blade is someone that like deserves respect. Like, obviously, like he gets tilted and stuff now, and he gets frustrated. But realistically speaking, TF Blade has one of the strongest mentals out of anyone. He probably has the strongest mental in NA history, and he's still getting this frustrated. Like his ability to like deal with frustration and overcome it and continue grinding and always getting to that goal of rank 1, it takes such mental fortitude to do. It's so much harder now than it used to be. Like back in early seasons, getting rank 1 used to be about like just being skilled. Right now, it's just a test of like patience and like being able to like always understand that like you just have to do your best every single time, and even if things are going unlucky, knowing that like it won't go unlucky forever, like just having that mentality is so useful. So it's like when you have a player like Blade that has like the strongest mental in NA and he's getting like this fucking triggered, the only reason he's getting more triggered than other people now is because he's one of the only people that are still trying. Most other content creators have just like been like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like smurf and just like duo Q and just not even give a fuck. Like no one else is doing rank 1 climb except for him because it just seems so doomed in the season. It's so ridiculously unfun.
I want to highlight one part that Hasha said. They have no respect for content creators unless it's a game release. To go more into that, they have no respect for content creators unless it's useful for them in that exact moment. And it's so true. They treat content creators like tools. Like it's not symbiotic for them. Like they literally use us as tools when they need to. And when we're not useful for them, like they throw us away like tools.
I mean, it just is what it is. Like, you just have to. I think the one thing that you have to understand about, like, if they allow this to happen as a content creator, you just have to like be willing to like go with it, right? If they're gonna treat you like shit, you have to put on display that they're treating you like shit. You have to be like more aggressive about it. Like the people that succeed, like if you look at all the content creators that are being successful right now, like Blade, Mo, fucking Tyler One, like all these people that are successful, they just consistently shit on Riot because like when Riot is just giving you shit to work with and they're shitting on you, to make good content you need to also like give something back. Like you have to like step up to them. And like if you don't do it, you just look like a bitch.
Oh, there's another tweet that I want to go to. This one's from Febby Knight. So Febby Knight is just like a small time streamer. She's just like a Masters Bard player like in Korea. Like she's not a huge player, but this is also a problem in Korea. I just wish they sit down and watch my solo queue stream for a few hours every day. They will quickly realize how unpleasant and unplayable and unfun the experience is due to inters, AFK, selling items, etc. Literally only played one normal game yesterday from 5 hours of League. Like, it's not just like people at the highest level. It's not just people in NA. I mean, we know it's like NA, Europe, and Turkey now thanks to TF Blade and Dom, but it's also Korea. Like, this thing happens everywhere and Riot is so ignorant to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is just people have, like people are gonna be more willing to like run it down and more willing to int if they see that there's not enough punishment coming down. And I feel like people just feel safe inting right now. Like you don't feel like there's gonna be any punishment. Like at least back in the day, there used to be some like if you were like a professional player or you were like paid by Riot, you would not int. Like you just never int a game because you were just too afraid to like lose that, and players would like be put on probation for like things like that. Like people like Nuke Duck and Mythy got 6 months bans for LCS. Like I got a year ban. Like Jensen got a 3-year ban. Like if you were toxic in solo queue in Riot's eyes, they used to do something about it. Like so it came from like the highest level. They don't ban pro players for being toxic anymore. They don't do any of that anymore. And then if you look at like right now what's happening, like I got inted by a player, like a professional Polish player. I got just like inted by like Disco Nunu. Like he Disco Nunu'd me in a fucking master game, like in my promos to master, just to try to make sure I mean I still got master anyway, but like he just tried to like fucking grief me in the game, like, and it's just like they don't care at all. Like just cleanse Nunu, just runs it, just rolls it straight down, and no one gives a fuck. Like if these people, like if somebody did that, right, and then there's like competitive ruling, like this guy has been banned for like 6 months because he's like actually like into games. If they did something like that again, people would be more afraid to hint. They'd be like, oh shit, like
what if they permanently banned a player for several years or a year or two for doing that to make an example out of them? I guess it's just been a while. It's just been a while.
I mean, it's not even, it's just like people don't get banned. Like I posted clips of some guy unironically running it straight down mid lane on my Twitter. I reported him in game. I had 3 other people from my team and the enemy team, so it was 6 people and me, so 7 people total reported this guy in the same game, right? He ran it down on stream. I put clips of it. Like I showed it on my stream. I had 7,000 viewers. I showed it on my stream. I put clips of it on Twitter. We all reported him in game, and he's just been playing ever since. This guy's name is Wency, Wency, and he's just been playing ever since. Like nothing fucking happened to this guy for just running it down. Like you can just run it down with no punishment right now. The only way you get banned is if you type, "I am going to intentionally feed," and then you fucking run it down.
The impossible evidence.
Yep.
There's people at Riot that see your tweet, and there's people at Riot that watch our podcast. There's people at Riot that see the video clips. Like, what do they do? Like, do they just like sit there? Like, what do they do? Like, they see that tweet, they see that clip, and they're like, I'm genuinely curious what the thought process internally would be.
I don't know.
I think it's out of my lane. That sucks for Dom. I hope that the system itself works and gets refined and changes made. But I've got to get back to work because I've got to wear 4 hats.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think that they just don't care. Like, the thing is, I think it kind of sucks that like I was the one that went over it and got inted so hard because like since I'm so like
Toxic,
people will just people will just like kind of view me as like
anti-Riot.
They view me. Yeah, they view me as anti-Riot, but then most importantly, like I'm someone who's viewed as like somebody that I could like just like even in the community, even though I don't even believe that I do this. Like if you watch the clips, I feel like it's undisputable evidence that like people are inting, right? Like it just there's no other explanation. Like why would you go Nunu with cleanse and run straight down mid with W? Like how is that not inting, right? Because people see me as like, oh, he's just a complainer. Like me complaining, just they put less value on the complaints. They're like, oh, well, since Dom complains a lot, he's probably like not as right about this, or maybe it's not as bad as he's making it seem. So it's kind of unlucky that I went over there because I'm sure that anyone else like would have the same experience. Like if Tyler, like, even though Tyler wasn't a complainer because he's so popular, if he had the games that I had in Europe and he had all the clips that I had, he had all the Reddit, like the Twitter, like everything going for him, I feel like people would have taken it as a more serious issue, but because it was me, it's like kind of just whatever.
Okay. Daniel, final thoughts, and then we can finish up on this.
Yeah, I just think that it's not a priority for Riot. They've made it clear that it's not a priority for Riot. I am available to be Riot Light too and come in and watch all these VODs and adjudicate and create a system that if you report and it's not an int, like a clear int, even if it's like a soft int, it's not a clear int, then like your now reporting power gets removed for a week or something like that. And I think that's a fine and fair thing. But can you imagine like that position? You would just be inundated with reports and you would just go through one by one. That would suck.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't
people
have to be,
work worth jobs for less money.
I don't think it's like if you had like 3 people that were just like
job.
watching high profile streams or just like available. So like when one of these things like I would just love that. Like I would just want somebody to like look at it and just like see the things that I'm posting on Twitter and tell me that it is not an intentional feed. Like just tell like are they actually that delusional? And if they are, like I can't really help them. You know, I'm sure there are people that are going to be like, oh, this was just like a misplay. But anyone that understands high and low, that has like some idea of what the game should look like, will understand like that these are people just running it down like for the fun of it.
All right. D, let's go to the next topic, the TFT thing.
Yeah, so 2 more topics left in the day. Kind of running on through here as we get close to 2 hours. TFT. So we used to have our TFT section when both these guys wanted to prove how big their dick was by how high their rank was in TFT.
Yep, and whose was bigger?
Dom's rank was higher.
Dom's, your donger was bigger. Okay, there you go, I said it.
There it is. Clip it, boys. There it is.
And so here we have the stats on TFT's viewing statistics from Twitch. And you can see there's been a pretty big drop over the last
30 days.
Month. Yeah, over the last month on both the viewership with spikes during some tournaments and on streaming on channels streaming TFT. It's starting to decline pretty heavily over the last month. Everything is red. Everything's burning. Is this the end of the game, Loco?
So ignore the graph because it's just from 17th to 16th. Just ignore that graph. Like that graph doesn't matter that much. The actual stats is what matters. Like in KPI, so KPIs, key performance indicators, they're getting wrecked. Hours watched, 63% less hours watched. 55% less hours broadcasted, 63% less average viewers, 55% less average channels. Like, they're just getting wrecked in every important category. It's like, TFT, I think it had a really nice start, but there are flaws to the game, and people were hyped up about it, but it's not going to be like this big staying game, it feels like.
I just feel like they didn't do enough to like keep people interested. Like there needed to be quicker like tournaments. Like there needed to be something hype that people are like building towards because like a lot of players just got bored. Like I think that like for example for me, right? Like I'm somebody who put a lot of time into TFT. Like I just played it like for like maybe like 3 weeks straight. I was barely playing League. It just feels like there's nothing to do. It's like you get Challenger and then after Challenger it's like, oh, I can go for rank 1, which is extremely hard to do, and it's like not very fulfilling considering like the gains and losses. So it's like you either just no life it and you go for rank 1, or you just drop it. There's no like incentive to like, oh, I want to like play and get better so I can play this tournament. Like there should have been like something that they could have had, like, you know, some celebration of this game starting where they invited like all the streamers to like a live event or something. They did some TFT. There needed to be something earlier than this to keep people interested when it was spiking.
Also, I definitely agree. They missed like they missed the mark of having streamers do things and there actually being a competition. When Hearthstone first came out, like they kept doing like little Hearthstone tournaments and all the personalities really got to develop. Like they stuck them in one house and then there were like a lot of Hearthstone tournaments. Like that's how Ahmad, Trump, Kriparian, Forsen, like all these big Hearthstone streamers, like they grew so much from those initial tournament pushes and like getting to see those personalities interact and compete against each other. And Teamfight Tactics had the same kind of potential and they did nothing with it. And then they have that TwitchCon tournament coming up, like Twitch Rivals. The hype is already dead. Like there's 63% average, on average, there's 63% less people watching. Like, why not do this like during the hype of things and lead up to TwitchCon? Like, it was so fucking stupid.
I will defend that a little bit, right?
Sure, go for it.
And it's their first game that they have released and launched out, and it is to a lot of success. I think they did have a lot of eyes on it. They were patching every week, right? So you had a team in the background, so you were allocating resources to that. We've already talked about how we think because of the amount of resources being allocated to TFT, the solo queue itself and the Summoner's Rift and ranked itself was starting to suffer in terms of patches and changes and bugs. So they have allocated resources to it. One place I will agree with you is that there weren't enough events, official events, that I think created enough hype around the game, utilizing the streamer base and the influencer base that is already being somewhat fragmented by the way that people.
It just seemed like other people cared more. It's like Twitch cared more about TFT than Riot did. It's like the people were making their tournaments themselves. Like Pokey's hosting a tournament and shit. Like Riot needed to do something, like some type of invitational. Like if you remember how Hearthstone was, like at the beginning, it was just like, here's a bunch of tournaments, and then it was like, oh, and like we're gonna start doing like qualifiers for BlizzCon, and then there was that huge tournament, and that was gonna like crown who like the best Hearthstone player in the world was in, like the first season. Like there was just more stuff going on where it's like Riot is like, okay, we released their new game mode, and here's a rank ladder, and like the rank ladder was pretty hype, and then you play the rank ladder, and after you're done with the rank ladder, what do?
Opportunities aren't infinite. They're very finite, especially for a game and especially for hype and especially for riding the wave, and they missed it completely. Like they struck gold and they're like, fuck this, we'll just come back to it later. Like they had a huge opportunity and they missed out on it. I just cannot imagine a Riot company of that size, and they have such a high bar for releasing games because they feel like, well, whatever game we make will not be League of Legends, so it has to be really damn good. People have to love it. And people love Teamfight Tactics. There was so much love for Teamfight Tactics, and they just let it die. It was just so stupid how they handled the hype of the game and how they handled influencer marketing. Like, the companies pay so much to have the same kind of hype and same kind of recognition that TFT did, and Riot had that relatively free without spending a lot of cash on it, and they just let it go because it just seems like incompetency or ignorance.
I think things happened very quickly, and they didn't plan for the level of success that they were going to have. I think when you look at a similar game, what comes to mind for me, it's Apex, right? Apex had that massive following, and they spent those millions of dollars, right, on that marketing campaign. As soon as it was over, a lot of the streamers just like went away, and then the game was pronounced dead.
It's because they keep on missing the mark. Like these companies have to be ready to release the game and like roll out a bunch of stuff immediately, right? So the thing that happened with Apex, it took so long for Rank to even come out. You know, it's like Rank came out when the hype was dead. It's like if TFT tournaments come out now, the hype is already gonna be fucking dead. It's like you have to be willing to be like I think the one thing that League did really well is like when League started actually snowballing, it was like season 1 world championships, $1 million whatever. Like like $5 million season 2, and then there's like the whole path, and it's like showed how the average player could go from playing in solo queue to potentially winning millions of dollars playing the game, you know? And it like hyped so many people, like even players that were fucking like silver and gold that are just like pretty much everyone's Twitch chat were like sitting there like, I'm gonna be the next thing, like I'm gonna be the pro player. Like everyone had some hype, whereas like now there's no hype for it. Like you have to set the hype in the beginning and like give some people like a goal to work towards, I feel like.
Do you feel
wait, Daniel, you're telling me, what if Riot didn't expect this kind of success, and what kind of success did they expect for it, and what was their game plan?
I think like a new game mode, right? What if it's like as successful, like more successful than a new game mode? I'm saying that it's kind of ridiculous that that's what they might have thought beforehand, but like,
and what was their game plan for promoting?
Thought about it.
What was their game?
When they initially thought about it, it was just like, hey, this is going to be a new game mode that we know what new game modes and new game mode success is like. This can follow that same path.
And that's bullshit. That's complete bullshit. Because if it's a new game mode, they wouldn't assign a team to it. They treated it like a game. They pulled their best players onto it. They treated it like a game. They created a team around TFT. There's people getting full-time, like multiple people getting full-time money to make sure TFT is successful. They definitely did not treat it like a game mode. I think that's just
I mean, they've never
that's
had
bullshit.
It, like, the difference is like game mode. Like, there's never been a game mode with. Like, as soon as they started putting like a rank ladder on the game mode, I feel like that's like when it stops being a game mode and it starts being like a new game. Like you are putting value within the competition of it, whereas the other ones were like strictly for fun, right? Like Ascension and I forget what the fucking like other ones were called, like
Blitz,
Nexus Blitz, yeah. So it's like those ones. There was never like something competitive about it. It wasn't like, oh, we're at like this. That was just like for fun. This was like something that's supposed to be permanent in the client with a rank ladder. Whereas before, every other game mode was rotating, besides for I guess Dominion, which was just like shit that they never put a ranked game mode for as well. So it's just like, I feel like if you're gonna start going like the competitive route, where this is meant to be like a skill, you have to follow that up with more competition, and there just wasn't any.
Unlucky for TFT. I still think that it has a long way to go. A long way to go because, again, I look at Apex, and Apex just had their preseason invitational over in Krakow and Poland and had it to success. I wouldn't say it's the levels of success. I don't think there are very many games that have been able to ride the success that they started and shoot out of a cannon other than League of Legends several years ago, Fortnite most recently, but
most game devs pray for it, and they're so ready to latch onto like any kind of initial hype the game has. Both Apex and Riot failed completely in terms of like handling the initial success that their game had. Like, why is this invitational being done like with like the Apex hype being almost over?
I think game devs are almost always ready for success, but they're never ready for the level of success that both these games had. And you have to plan for when the worst possible outcome as well, right?
I mean,
like,
I just
all those things.
Like, so you say they didn't plan for like the success. It's like, what is putting all that money into it then? When you're like going into where it's like, we're gonna spend this amount of millions of dollars on streamers to like get our game popular. If that's like your step one, right? Like you have to be like thinking about, okay, so if we pay all this money and the streamers do well with it and the game becomes popular, then we're gonna do step two, which is gonna like make that success more solidified. But it's like they had no plan. It's like, all right, we paid a bunch of streamers to stream it. They streamed it. Okay, it's getting a fuck ton of viewers. Disguised Toast is like 25, 30K viewers every single fucking day. Like, here it is. What are we gonna do? TwitchCon 5 months later. It's like, I don't know, it just seems so weird.
It's just ignorance. It's just ignorance and being out of touch with like streaming community and influencer marketing.
Sure. And I think that as much as that they have, according to you, have been ignorant,
it's not according to me. It's what if it's shown from their actions. It's not like a statement I'm making up. Like
a statement that you did make. I'm not saying you make it up. You made it up. I'm just saying you're calling it ignorant. And I think that there's just a lot of things that go into game dev. And
what would you? Okay, Daniel. Then what would you describe it as?
Missing an opportunity, not planning for that. I
would say it's poor planning. That's what I would say. It's really, really poor planning. Like, because that's like one of the main things when you do critical thinking, right? Like, that was one thing that I learned a lot from Weldon. Is just like even basic decisions, like that you think you know like the right answer for, being able to like go down the tree of like okay, like I remember I did something where I was like thinking about coming back to playing pro in season 8, right? And it was like, okay, if I go back to pro, like what are like the pros and cons immediately? Okay, like loss of stream time, loss of revenue, potential like more success. I'll feel better about like my ego, etc. It's like, okay, now I'm in pro play. If I'm in pro play, like if it goes well, how do I feel? If it goes okay, how do I feel? If it goes poorly, how do I feel? It's like they have to be able to like do that with their game. Like, okay, we have this game. We're gonna pay streamers to play it. If the streamers do well, what are we gonna do to like maintain that success? If it does poorly, what are we gonna do to like cut our losses and not like just lose a bunch of fucking money on TFT? If it goes like okay, what are we gonna do to like take that success and like bring it up to the next level? It seems like they didn't even go through the critical thinking to like have everything in place. So like when they saw like what the situation was, which was that the game was successful, they didn't have like the thing to jump to immediately. They're like, oh shit, well like I hope it stays successful. Like I don't know, it just seems like it's very like basic when you're planning.
And that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because again, how that sounds like a lot of management type thinking there. You have a lot of engineers, you have a lot of designers, you have a lot of gameplay devs, but I don't think, again, that kind of management, Riot is known for its management structure of people just getting bumped up to management roles, led to that type of thinking. Because that all makes a lot of sense to me, and it just doesn't sound like someone did that. Or the team did that to the depth of degree that was necessary.
All right.
All right.
Go to the next one.
What do you have left, Loco?
I can't pull it. Can you check Discord? I can't pull it up without showing it on my screen.
Last one. Worlds. The Worlds tickets went on sale recently. A friend of mine, Munchables, fantastic caster for the UK region. He did the what did they do? The premiership. Shout out to Munch. He said on Twitter, I have 4 devices loaded and ready to go to get these damn tickets, and I don't know if I actually got them or not. The tickets timing was not correct, apparently. So they said they were going to release at one time. They didn't. It was this big kerfuffle of a release time. Loco, do you want to expand on the train wreck that was World's tickets?
So there is a difference between CET and CEST. This is something I actually fucked up on when I was doing European timing for Listen Loco, so I learned it the hard way, but mine wasn't selling world tickets. But Riot advertised something as CET, while it was CEST, or the other way around, so they were about an hour off. So, well, all the tickets went to scalpers. Not all of them, but they sold out for people that were waiting, and yeah, it happened again. This isn't the first time for Riot, like tickets getting sold at the wrong time or tickets getting almost insta-bought by bots.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Just a fuck up. Like, that's what you say about that. It's just like, yeah, they fucked up. That's all it is.
All right.
It just seems like this has been like a consistent theme. I think that's the one thing that worries me. It just feels like they're like, I feel like this is what happens with a company that's been like super, super dedicated to one thing for a long time. And then they start like diversifying their resources into like, oh, we're now doing like a fighting game, and we're doing a strategy game, and we're doing League of Legends still. And it's like you thin like your resources across all of these, and then you just end up with like worse results and everything. It's like, okay, well now people are getting banned less in League, and now things are being planned worse in like TFT, and like just things that I think should be like standard is like, yeah, you should just be able to, how do you not know what time zone? Like I fucking tell a time zone that my stream is going to start, and I'm there every single time. Like how can you not do that when you're professionals? Like it's so mind-blowing to me.
Another thing is, just if you're going to mess up this much, and if you mess up on a consistent basis, stop with this like industry leader bullshit and stop with this like elitism bullshit. Like say like, hey, we're working with you guys, like we're making mistakes, like be fucking humble about shit. But the attitude they portray just fucking amplifies all the problems. This is just, I'm not going to Worlds, and like the finals ticket really doesn't affect me that much, so I'm not very like overly sympathetic about it as I was with like other issues. But like for the people that are affected, holy fuck, I feel for them. Like people plan for this, like people take time off of work to like plan to be able to go to this shit.
I feel like it's kind of what Riot has done this time is really disrespectful to Europe in general. Like I understand that most of their viewers are from China, and like even though like that is the case where most of your popularity lies within China, just like having this mistake with the ticket sales and then having like the times just not be conducive to like Europeans, it's like what the fuck, like this is like Europe's best chance to win Worlds, it feels like. you have two really good teams going in that both have like potential chances to make finals, and it's like you just don't give a fuck about them. You won't even tell them what time the tickets are going online. You won't even schedule it at times so they can easily make the events. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you should at least care. Like, I feel like, yeah, obviously China is bigger, but I don't think that like just because China is bigger, you have to like shaft everyone this hard.
What to say?
Not much to say. Just more unfortunate circumstances that continually taint the image of the company as they continue to sprawl out on different assets and just keep taking.
Wait, 1 minute ago,
hits.
we got some new news. Holy shit.
What?
All right.
You got to read the tweet. Riot Games. You should
Really?
read this on stream. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, let's take a peek.
What is it? What happened this time?
Why is this? This is just Riot. This is perfect right
Go to
now.
who tweeted it?
Riot Games. Just
Riot.
Riot Games. Yeah, at Riot Games. Yeah.
Riot Games. At Riot Games?
Yep, there it is. It's the first one. You just pass it. Announcing Realms of Runeterra.
Unlock the mysteries and magic within League of Legends in this encyclopedic and collectible companion book that allows you to explore the game's epic lore.
See, and people thought that Season 9 was doomed, but now we got the Runeterra Encyclopedia. Look at this. This is what people wanted. Who's fucking hyped?
Oh man, I'm a lore junkie, so I actually am hyped. Dom, you know that I love lore. You were on that show with me.
Oh, God.
I'm actually hyped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Locos is exactly who they're appealing to now. Fuck the competitive players. Fuck the people that play solo queue all day. Let's
Sorry, Don.
have a Riot. You know what? Why don't you just have a reading stream, Loco, where you just read this book with your chat? Just story time with Loco.
I'm down. I love lore.
Holy fuck. I can't believe that this is what they're putting their time into. It's so disturbing.
For once in my life, I will actually defend Riot. Okay, once in my life, I'll defend Riot. The team that does the lore and the team that does the storytelling has nothing to do with all the stuff we have problems
to do
with.
with everything else. Correct.
Yeah, all the things we have
like-
problems with.
Of course, but like for me, it's just like those are people within your company, and this is what they're working on. It's like I don't know.
They hired them for this reason, Dom. Like they didn't not hire developers or they didn't not hire people to watch streams to hire writers.
Yeah, but it's like some portion of your resources is now going towards lore, where it's like, who the fuck cares about lore? It's like, hire some people to fix the goddamn season. How about that?
Oh, wow.
Like,
I mean, you know how much anti-Riot I am, but this is like one point, like
hard to defend,
this is one part where I'll defend them because like it's not like they had to pick between like stream watchers or developers or like rioters. Like they had to hire rioters anyways, and they hired the rioters.
but for me, it's like you have options, right? They make it seem like it's an inconceivable thing that they can hire 2 to 3 rioters to like high streams. Like that was something that we proposed to them. Was like, can we have 2 or 3 rioters like that are hired to specifically protect the integrity of high elo, because high elo is so fragile. You get to play with the same players all the fucking time. So if you have like bad eggs in there, everyone's just gonna like deal with it. It's gonna be so much more disturbing for us than it will be for like a gold player, because you'll never see your players again. It's like, and if that's like, if it's like, no, we cannot hire these 2 to 3 rioters. It's like, well, you hired 2 to 3 rioters to write this fucking book probably. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, if the resources are really that slim, like you're $1 billion
That's
company.
the bullshit. No, that's the bullshit, Dom. Their resources aren't that slim. They could hire those people, and they're choosing not to because they feel like it's not worth it. It's not like if they fired all the writers, that money would go to like getting stream watchers.
Exactly. I
That's
know
the bullshit part.
That's why I just phrase it like that, because it's like obviously they could just pay to do both, but they just choose not to, and then everyone just suffers as a result.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right. Let's go back to the. All right. Any other topics that we had, or Daniel?
Yeah, just last one. This one just kind of popped up on the feed as well. G2 trolling Riot a little bit. We would like to formally, it's a tweet on G2 Esports if you want to pull that up. You can scroll down, it's one of their images. We would like to formally thank you for, dear Riot Games, we would like to formally thank you for issuing us a penalty after we showed Wonder playing WoW Classic. We finally have a justifiable reason to uninstall the game from his PC. Sincerely, G2 Esports. And then they linked the Google document that has all the all the fines in it. And right there at the bottom, it says G2 esports team fined €1,000 for a commercial violation because apparently Wonder was streaming. Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing. What is
Wait.
this? I thought they took that away.
Where commercial violation. Holy shit! They actually did get
Wait,
fined.
what did he do? Wait, for what?
Oh, okay. So they have PCs that don't allow you to install other things, and then you have to go out of your way to install it. And then I guess that's like the commercial violation because they were given stuff where they were only supposed to do League, and then he actually played WoW on it.
And all in good fun with the LEC League operations lead, Max to the X, Maximilian Peter Schmidt, responded, "You are welcome." So at least LEC kind of gets it. That's just weird. I can't believe they actually hit him with the fine for that. I guess bad on Wonder for like installing it.
I mean, it just goes to like it's always been Riot's mentality. It's like they seem super threatened or like insecure about like the quality of like their product because even in season 3, like that the way they started is like you're never allowed to stream another game because they're so afraid that if like a streamer or a player that's in LCS streams another game, like they're just gonna lose viewers to it immediately. Where I feel like if you had more confidence in your product and more like you just thought that you had a legitimately good product, you wouldn't be as scared of like it shouldn't matter if like somebody shows like a little bit of World of Warcraft, right? Like they should still be playing League for the fact that League is good. I think the fact of the matter is they know that League is like a bad game right now, so they're trying to just like hide people from everything else. It's like, yeah, only look at League, only look at TFT. Like don't look at anything else. Everything else is shit, I promise you. Like really? It's like I guess we'll take your word for it, right?
All right.
Yeah, I'm taking a peek here on Reddit. It was a screenshot, I think. So it looked like he alt-tabbed WoW Classic while during the LEC broadcast.
Oh my. Okay.
It was just a screenshot. He didn't actually install it on the stage PC. That's so fun. That's so BM for anyone doing the watching the pro view. He just like pulls it up. Easy game, still logging into WoW. Oh man, 1K screenshot. All right, thank
Definitely
you, G2.
worth it.
I'm very excited to see you guys at Worlds and the rest of the teams at Worlds over there, the 24 squads. Worlds starts up the first week of October. It'll be Wednesday the 2nd, I believe, through Saturday the 5th, and then pick back up, I think, Tuesday through Wednesday for like the Reckoning, something like that. It'll be around that time frame in October. It'll be very exciting. And of course, before that, we've got a couple weeks, so we will have our very own Worlds breakdown episode of all 24 teams and which team will disappoint and which team Clutch Gaming will kick out of the World Championships as on their way to the semifinals. We'll have all that coverage and more hopefully with Zyrene, hoping that he feels better and gets better. Guys, any closing words before we close out this episode?
So, a week from now, like 3 a.m. PST or 7 a.m. PST is when they're going to do the group draw. So like 3 hours before the show starts. So we'll all watch the group draw, and like the first topic we'll open up with like is World's groups apparently next week. So open with that.
It's gonna be so hard for me because I'm gonna be streaming at the time.
I just look at the group draw. Like you just have to look at a screenshot of it before we start the show.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So yeah, I mean.
Yeah, it's really easy apparently. All right. Anything else? Dom, you got anything?
Nope. Good.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you guys next week for the group draw, 7 a.m. And then back to Facecheck at 10 a.m. So we'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.
All right. Later.